to be our first speaker. She's convincing. She's an environmental advocate, an anthropologist, a blogger, and a mother of 4 children. In 2011, she founded Stop the Menacing Compressor Station. Since then, she has written several articles about the regulatory process and unconventional gas development. She speaks at many forums on energy and climate change policy. She speaks about the regulatory and legal frameworks, as well as about public health implications. 3 years ago, she co-founded Protect Orange County and has been researching and intervening in the CPV permitting process since then. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming out. And before I start my presentation, so don't start my clock yet, I just have a quick question. How many people found out about this project from the flyer for this event? Can you raise your hand? How many people found out about it within the last couple of months? Okay. Raise your hand if you knew about it 2 years ago. Raise your hand if you knew about it in 2009. Okay. I just wanted to get a sense. We're going to cram through. This has been going on for about 10 years that we can trace back, probably a little further back. So we are going to try to cram in 15 minutes, 10 years, and thousands of pages of documents. So bear with us. I have about 10 minutes. Randy will take about 5. Competitive Power Ventures. Am I blocking this? Okay, so all I have to do is press page down. All right. So, page down. What is not going? To get to the next slide. Oh, there. Can't really see it. This is the site plan for the power plant. It's going to be a 650 megawatt power plant in the town of Waiwanda. It's sited on 122 acres. It will include 2 270-foot smokestacks, a compressor station, electrical interconnects, a near million-gallon diesel tank, a 15,000-gallon ammonia tank, a GIS building, I'll explain that later, a 7-mile lateral pipeline that will connect to the Millennium Pipeline in Minnesota. All of these are highly volatile and toxic facilities that are prone to leaks and explosions. This is going to be built in a pristine area on protected farmland with 60 acres of federally designated wetlands, and I'll explain the significance of that a little later when we talk about water. It's known endangered species habitat. It would destroy a historic site and a Native American burial ground. It's adjacent to a public housing project and close to residential communities and to schools. The Department of Environmental Conservation, the DEC, allowed the town of Waiwanda to assume lead agency for the review of this project, which has now issued all approvals through a faulty secret process. The town of Goshen, along with several environmental groups, complained about the fact that they have lead agency status, but no, there was no change in that. The location was targeted, we believe, in 2005. In 2006, they began the permitting process. In 2008, they held the first scoping meeting. And in 2014, the last permit was issued by the Public Service Commission. They're now trying to secure financing through a power purchase agreement with New York State. So it is not a done deal. And there is some litigation pending on a federal level on the constitutionality of that type of agreement. Okay. So CPV and their agents are one of the largest financial donors to Governor Cuomo and in New York State in general. I don't know if you can look at this chart, but you'll see that they're number 5 on the list. This is all oil and gas industry groups, and pretty much most of the groups on this chart have a vested interest in this particular project. I won't go into the details, but okay. Most of our local and state elected officials have supported this project, including Democrats and Republicans. Scoovis, Stefano, Bonisic, of course. His son was an attorney for Millennium, And please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he was also an attorney at one point for CPV as well as the town of Royal. CPV asserts that this is needed in order to close Indian Point, though New York State does not use most of Indian Point's power. CPV identifies the impact radius as 5 miles, but standard air modeling analysis says that it would be at least 30 miles for direct impacts. And because of our topography, it will likely be double of that. Hundreds of miles for indirect impacts. Only residents living within 500 feet were directly notified, and that was in 2013.
500 feet.
500 feet. This is a greenfield site. Once it becomes a brownfield site, it will justify further expansion. And in fact, section 18.5 of the FEIS leaves that door wide open. This is one of those expansion plans, and you can see that little green dot is CPV, and that little red dot is the mini single compressor station. And the plan is to connect from the Tennessee pipeline in Sussex, New Jersey, up to the Iroquois and Dover. The city of Middletown has signed a contract to give CPV at least 360 gallons per day of water, and then allow them to dump their wastewater into the city's sewer treatment plant. This is a big problem because that water will be hot and most likely will kill the bacteria in the sewer treatment plant, which will then go into the Wallkill River. The sewer treatment plant also is at risk of losing their EPA status. And the company is known to have a history of eventually taking a lot more water than they had initially been permitted for. The Wallkill River Aquifer is a sole source aquifer that serves about 40,000 people in Orange County and northern New Jersey. A sole source aquifer means that it's the only source of drinking water. The wetlands, which I talked about earlier, they serve a very important function because they recharge the aquifer. So you can think of them as a big filter. So 60 acres of wetland, federally designated wetland, is a pretty serious loss to this community. Now I'm going to talk about air emissions. The plant will emit 2.1 million tons of CO2 equivalent, which is equivalent to about 210 coal trains. That's 0.03% of the entire nation's CO2 emissions. That's a very large for one single source. 0.03%, was 0.037%. This does not include the leaking methane, and we have a couple of mini-sink folks here. Their pipelines are constantly leaking. Now we know that methane, fugitive methane, has an 86 times greater global warming potential than CO2. So people concerned about global warming and Sandy and things like that should also be very concerned about this project. The plant will emit 750 tons of volatile organic compounds, nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxides, particulate matter 10, which is a little bit larger, particulate matter 2.5, and ultrafine particulate matter, as well as formaldehyde. All of these are known carcinogens, neurotoxins, and endocrine disruptors. Most concern is PM 2.5 and ultrafine particulate matter, which is really, really tiny particles. So all of these chemical emissions are all included in what's considered particulate matter. The really fine particulate matter, the 2.5 and ultrafine, they settle very deep into your lungs, and because they're so small, they can easily penetrate into your bloodstream and your organs. And there's actually a very new study just out from Harvard University. It's a very important study because it talks about specifically PM 2.5 around power plants. It was a 12-year longitudinal study with over 100,000 participants, and they concluded that it increases the risk of autism, as well as asthma and other illnesses, especially for the unborn. Originally, the DEC said they were going to do a Department of Health review, but that never occurred. Orange County is a non-attainment area for ozone and particulate matter. nitrous oxide and volatile organic compounds, when they're released into the atmosphere, they interact with sunlight to form ground level ozone. Ozone is known to be is known to decrease crop production by as much as 30%. The plant will likely impact the black dirt region, which is a world-famous mineral-rich formation derived from an ancient glacial lake. It's home to many organic farms, specialty farms and vineyards, and you want to think about our booming agritourism industry and what this plant will do to it. CPV failed to identify hotspots. Hotspots are locations where the emissions impact would double because of topography and wind patterns. And when the town of Goshen raised this issue and said you didn't identify hotspots, CPV's response was, well, the entire area is essentially going to be a hotspot. What he referred to as significant impact levels. So